Today's video, we're going to take this amplifier out of this vehicle and replace it with a different amplifier. Unfortunately, I hate to see this thing go because this is by far probably my top two favorites as far as amplifiers go. My first would probably be a Diamond Audio D7 series, which I absolutely love, but this one here, equally as much. This here is the older style, and I mean the older style Memphis Bell. This is actually the 6th channel because now they're all smaller AB/D class MOSFET amplifiers, which are significantly smaller. I'm going to show you the one we're going to switch this one out with. Now, although it's older and it's far more badass in my opinion in almost every way than the one I'm going to be replacing it with, it's also going to give me some features which I can actually use and find much more desirable. Reason being is this. Over here on this left side, since the seat is a split, kind of like a 70/30, I kind of use this section to, put stuff in there like long pieces of wood and, just things that I need to get at the store. So I don't want to have an amplifier covering up this entire area. And the box in the back is in itself pretty big because it's a big Memphis Mojo 12 and vented box. So it kind of takes up a little bit more space than I would like it to. Now, the problem with this amplifier is this. And unfortunately, as much as I wish it weren't so, some amps and some cars and systems just aren't compatible. And this one here is a case of the fact. Now you can see I have top of the line Memphis RCA cables. All these power cables, all true oxygen free, real top of the line cables that I'm using. Nothing here is ching chang or crappy in any kind of way. I even have distribution blocks down here. Try to show you. Down here to split my power and ground, because this amplifier has actually two power sections. One here for the sub side and another one there for the full range 4-channel for the interior speaker side. Problem I'm having is that when you look at this amp, and this is pretty common with most of the older style products, you see you have your power, your speaker leg outputs, and your RCAs all together. They're all together right there. And go over here, it's more of the same. This is wherein lies all my problems, because when this thing was all installed and mounted, I'll show you what happened. I had it all wired up, powered it up, adjusted everything. It sounded amazing. The sound was clean, crystal clear, but the problem was I was getting this nasty fucking noise, and it was all from electromagnetic interference from these RCAs. These here are the 4-channels. So what I attempted to do is get these ground loop isolators, connect all the grounds together. I even connected the ground from here to the head unit, put it on the chassis ground, I put it on a multimeter, I made sure my impedance was damn near 0. And what happens is, if you take these RCAs and hold them outside of the car like this, the noise goes entirely. And I mean entirely, crystal clear. Can't even tell there's even any noise in the system. Bring them in here, lay them over here. I even tried to extend the RCAs and throw them all the way in the back like that. The noise got better, but it never went away. So that is my problem, and it's a problem I cannot fix. Electromagnetic noise is a motherfucker. So unfortunately, since this amplifier is laid out this way and the power cables, audio cables are all the way they are, there's just no way to fix it. The only way to fix it is to switch out the amp. Let me show you what we're in for now. So just real quick before I get to work and doing all this stuff, just you can see I have plenty of slack for the wires so I can lay them out any way I want. So basically, this power cable, and the grounds and the turn-ons are all going to be on the right side, okay? And I can do that easily because in this vehicle the battery's in the trunk, so I can run all those far out and in, make my power connections there. My RCAs are already run on the passenger side, which is where the amplifier is looking for it on the smaller Memphis Bell I'm going to replace it with. So that should work out perfectly. Fingers crossed. Now here is the amplifier I'm going to replace it with. Again, it's a Memphis Bell. Instead of being a 6-channel, this is a 5-channel. It's an AB/D class MOSFET amplifier, so it's half digital, half MOSFET. Now, unlike the other amplifier, you'll see a big improvement. This is what you're going to find in newer, later, greater products, because engineering improves, things get better, and this one here is proof of the fact. Right here, you see you have your line in for your sub, front and rear right there. All your signals and adjustments right there. Other side, there's your AC speaker leg outputs, and there's your power input. So in this case, or in like any case in any vehicle or an amp installation, whenever you have the wires from the RCA's audio signals and the power cables within 16 inches or less, and they don't cross, you know, exactly as an X, you get noise. That's my problem. So with this amplifier, I'm hoping I'm going to install this, tune it up, turn on the car, and that hideous noise is going to be gone forever. Real quick, before I get into the car and show you how I install the system and stuff, I just want to really go over this because this is an important point for anybody who's dealing with what I'm dealing with, when you just have an unavoidable noise problem. Again, see the amp, all the RCAs, power, all up on one strip, causing me nothing but grief. Not only is that amplifier tremendous compared to the same amplifier that I'm using now, which is rated at the same power. You can see, again, RCAs on one side there. Other side is my power strip and my speaker outputs. I'll show you how that relates in the car really quick. Okay, back in the car. Now, this here is the passenger side of this vehicle. There's my RCAs. And a quick tip, whenever you do this, I don't know if this is going to show up, but you can see I kind of got stuff written on these. Like this here's my sub channel, front left, so that's my fronts, and there's my rears. And I usually use the red as my right side. Like some people, it's just a common thing that people do in the industry. Now, speaker box, there's the speaker output. It's going to go to that. And on the driver's side now, you can see this looks a whole lot different. See a separation. We got the audio on one side. We got a good 2.5 feet or more going to the driver's side. And over here we have the speaker leg outputs for the highs, fronts, rears, left and right. It's just 4 pairs. The 5th channel from my Memphis Bell, my sub. Over here, there's all my powers. Now, just talking about these powers, look on your amplifier. If your amplifier takes a 4-gauge input, give it a 4-gauge input. Don't use the 8 gauges. Now, from my prior installation, I had to split these from a number 4 gauge down to 2/8. If my amp is going to take a 4-gauge, I'm going to double up these 8s and run a 4-gauge into that amplifier. The better you treat the amp, more power you give it, the more it's going to give you on the output side. So, let's keep it moving. While rewiring this amplifier, I decided this one idea, and I wanted to share it with you guys, so that way when you install your amps, this might be a valid little trick that you might want to utilize. Now you see, like, on my amp, it has kind of like a 12-gauge input for the speaker wires, and you can see my old install, I had to take them, strip out double, I kind of flipped them over and jammed them in there to try to make it as good as I can. And of course, what happens is the amp screws them all up, ruffles them all up, rips the wire out of there, and it gets a little shitty looking, as you can see. So this time around, I'm going to be a little bit better, and I'm going to use these, which are called bullet connectors. So I crimp these guys on to the ends of here, and they go onto the amp like so. Now you can see here, I got all my bullet connectors on my amp. These here are for my speakers. Another thing is you might want to save yourself some time, because when it comes time to wire this thing up and adjust everything for your fronts and rears, try to keep those separate. So I've taped this pair off right here for my fronts. Same thing I've done here for my rears. Self-explanatory. I know this is my sub. And also notice that I've used the red appropriate size terminals for the regular speakers, and I've used the bigger blue ones for my sub channel. And another noteworthy thing is when you crimp, make sure you put that point onto the crimp itself where it's a solid piece of metal going around, because it is a circle and has a break in it. You don't want to crimp on that break, because that could actually jeopardize and make the connection worse than it would be had you not done it correctly. This here is the strip on the side of my amplifier. This here is the bullet connector. You can just back that machine screw right out of there, and these are nice and snug. Perfect size for the wire. Give them a little tap and they're in there nice, and you can just snug them down with the machine screw. And these you could use over and over again with them never having to worry about damaging and screwing up and just shredding the heck out of your speaker wires. Now when you're wiring up your amp, here's a really good trick to use. I have this 12-volt drill battery and the terminals were exposed. Now my amp's front channel's up here, my rear is over there, and the bottom one is my sub. Now I do have these already paired off, and I'm very good about labeling my wires, but just so you know and get into the habit, it's much easier to do it here and now instead of actually plugging everything in, turn on your stereo, to only find that your front left is your rear right and your rear left is your front left. You don't want to deal with all that shit. So take your battery, you can connect these to the terminals on your battery and pop your speaker out, and that'll tell you the location because you can hear it audibly by simply doing this trick. So once you got your fronts, put your front left there, front right accordingly. Do that on your rear channel on your sub, so that way over there when it comes time to doing your RCAs, just plug them in like you were supposed to, and everything should work and line up flawless. So while I'm on the topic of showing you how to find your speakers where they are in your car and how to pop them out with a battery, right? Here's another little trick for you. Now, I always use a stripe or the wire with the wording on it as my positive. So on here, you can see on my battery, maybe, negatives on top, positives on the bottom. So if I put my positive here, my negative there, and watch the speaker, when it travels outward in front of you, towards you, that's the correct polarity. If you did it the other way, that would be, of course, out of phase and would sound like shit. And that's what you don't want. So, there's another little trick for you on the old speaker phasing, speaker popping. As it turned out, my amp cannot accept the 4 gauge, but it can take a good thick 8 gauge. So what I've done is I've left the distribution blocks because they are 4 gauge, and since my amp will take 8, I'm going to use the one 4 gauge input on the input side, and on the output, the single 8 gauge. Now, it's important for you to take a little pre-thought, because once the system is up and running and that sub is banging away, nobody likes vibrations and rattles. Nobody. Get yourself some of this foam. From packaging material, it doesn't have to be super fancy, but it works every time. Wrap up anything that's going to be close nearby where the sub is going to be creating all this massive airwaves. I'm just going to tuck these in here nice and snug so that way it doesn't give me any trouble once I've got this thing up and playing.
Slow that shit down. Yeah. Who wanna ride with this? We can ride all day, every day. It's do or die all day, every day. It's suicide all day, every day. You be high all day, every day. I'm pulling down the avenue, doing what I gotta.
As you can see and definitely hear, my amp is working. I was successful in getting rid of that nasty engine noise. All the wiring looks nice and neat. This is the way your amp install should look. A couple wire ties will fix this up. And I do hope that if you're interested, there's going to be another 3-part series on this amp installation, because at the end of the day, this amplifier is going to have a full custom coffin. It's going to cover this whole piece with a lid, so that way this amp is going to be flush mounted, built right into the subwoofer, mounted firmly down to the right side. Over here is going to be a pass-through hole, and it's going to look really exceptional. So if you're interested in how to make custom coffins, custom interior panels, be sure to hit the subscribe button, so when I create the video, you'll automatically get an email stating that it's up. So you can give that a look, and that's it for now.